quite daunting coming out to a bunch of faces. The polecats, they're coming in, they are part of the mustelid family. But these guys, yeah, pure carnivores. What they'll do is they'll actually go down into the rabbit warrens and they'll stay in there, and then when they're feeling hungry, all they have to do is roll over in bed and grab the rabbit that's next to them. So yeah, they don't have to go too far for their food. Unfortunately, polecats not doing too well out in the wild, but because of conservation efforts like us breeding them and releasing them here at the centre, they've actually started making a bit of a comeback. To the point now we've got around 50,000 polecats back in Britain. So we work alongside a polecat organisation. So we breed them and then we hand them over to the polecat organisation. They can do a soft release where they'll build an enclosure out in the wild and they'll pop them in there, they'll feed them in there for a couple of days, and then they'll sort of open the door, let them go for a little wander around, and they'll still provide them with food. And then after a couple of days, once they know that they're not coming back for food, not coming back for shelter, then they'll take that enclosure away. So yeah, they'll hopefully have gone on to find their own little homes and found partners as well.
Favourite is their hazelnut. What our squirrels are very, very good at is, of course, caching or burying their food. Taking bits of food, running off down towards the ground to dig little holes to pop those nuts in to keep them nice and safe for later. But they are very, very cheeky. One of the reasons we all love the red squirrels so much, and what they have been known to do, and they do it very, very regularly here at the centre, is they will fake cache or fake bury. So they will run off with the nuts, they will pretend to bury it, but instead they'll tuck it up under their arm and run off to somewhere a little bit safer. Away from us, of course, away from the muntjac deer, very important, and away from the other red squirrels, in which case they get to keep all of their dinner for themselves. But because they are fed in here every single day, and a lot of the time they don't really need to go back for this food, so who really knows what's on the floor down here with me? Probably a whole lot of hazelnuts, but never mind. Out in the wild, they do prefer, or at least they would tend to be found living in coniferous forests with trees like spruce and pine, and for the most part they'll eat most different things they find on those trees, so different nuts and seeds, fruits and berries, sometimes even the bark and sap, and the occasional bird, egg or baby bird if they do happen to stumble across those as well. Now, one of the first things that people usually spot when they see our squirrels, either running around on the ground bearing their dinner, or of course up in the trees, is their thick red bushy tails. Absolutely gorgeous, of course, on our red and admittedly our grey squirrels too. But not just there to look pretty, they do serve a couple of very amazing purposes. On chillier days like today, not too unusual for them to wrap that tail around themselves, a little bit like a scarf or a blanket to help keep themselves snugly and warm, whereas on hotter days in the summer, when it's, as you can imagine, 30, 40 degrees in here sometimes, they will in fact bring that tail up and over their heads, a little bit like a shade umbrella to keep themselves protected from the sun, which is actually where the name squirrel would come from, to sit, to be, perhaps even to live in the shade of your own tail. That is how they get the name squirrels. There you go.
They have extra long teeth and extra sharp claws, which I don't like to test out. That's why I'm watching him where he goes, because yeah, they have a lot more powerful bite, and they are just essentially just a more powerful cat. So these guys can take down a small deer on their own if they put their minds to it, which I think's pretty insane really for just a single cat. Like, again, your moggy sort of take down, a little bird or a frog or something, but yeah, these guys could try and drag a small deer through your cat flap, which wouldn't go down well. But yeah, that's the kind of things they will take down, and hares and rabbits as well. People tried to domesticate them. Romans, when they first came over, tried to sort of domesticate them, train them, make them their pet. They just do not like it. I don't really blame them, to be fair. It is because of us, of course, that their numbers have dropped so drastically, bless them. They used to be quite a common cat in Britain. They used to be known as the British wood cat, you may have heard before. So yeah, quite sort of spread across Britain. So now they're saying roughly between sort of 50 and 100, that's it, left in Britain, and it is predominantly just in Scotland as well. So that's hence the name, it's changed from British wood cat to Scottish wild cat. That name has changed because that's where they are now. So we do breed them, and then they get picked up, and they either get re-released back out into the wild again, or they go to other places where they'll become, the part of that breeding program. So we're hopefully going to get a girlfriend for Mr. Grumpy here, aren't we? Does that sound good? But yeah, hopefully we'll get a girlfriend for him, and then they'll breed, and then again, hopefully they'll be re-released out into the wild, or a big part of that conservation program.
they are semi-aquatic, so that does mean they spend half their time on the land, half their time in the water, and they're well adapted for both. They can hold their breath for about 6 minutes underwater at a time, and they can swim about 100 metres during that time as well. So they've got a pretty good set of lungs on them. They've got 2 layers of fur, one like a nice warm jumper, and then another layer of fur made up of guard hairs that they secrete an oil onto, and that's what gives it a waxy waterproof coating, allowing them to dry off really quickly when they get out the water. So they've kind of got their own wetsuit. Now they also have their own pair of swimming goggles because they've got an extra eyelid that's completely transparent to stop bits of dirt going in their eyes when they're swimming. They all have webbed feet. Again, that's really useful, especially at this time of year, on those muddy banks to help them get out, but also to help them propel themselves in the water. And they've also got whiskers, you might have noticed. Use those whiskers essentially to feel the vibrations of their prey. So they use those whiskers to pick up the movement of the fish in the water, and that's how they end up finding their food, even if it's a little bit murky in there. So another little thing about these otters that make them pretty cool for all the time they spend in the water. Back in the 50s, 60s, these guys here were on the brink of extinction due to various things. For the first one was pesticides working its way off into the water from our farmland. That was depleting the oxygen levels, which in turn was killing off the fish. It had an adverse effect on these guys and their breeding, but also it was killing off those fish that they were eating. And then fishermen also thought it was the otters taking all the fish, so they started hunting the otters as well. So that another reason led to their numbers dropping. Now people realise that it wasn't the otters' fault, so it was made illegal to hunt or disturb the otters out in the wild. We also cleaned up our waterways enough to sort of bring back the fish levels enough to help out our otters. Both of those things combined with breeding and release programmes has allowed us to now have an otter in every single county. Conservation success story here in the UK.
She's very happy with herself, if you can't tell. It's a horrible job, this, isn't it?
Her name is Kit, and she's about a year old, found in the wild, very young age, taken to a rescue and couldn't go back to the wild, and is now here. In urban environments, they will build underneath anything they can, whether it's your decking, whether it's your shed, or for some reason underneath everyone's railway bridge. That's where everyone says their local fox seems to live. It is, of course, a lot of effort to build your own home, so foxes are pretty well known for stealing absolutely everyone else's. So they'll move in with badges in the badger set sometimes, and they'll bring home loads of food to keep the badgers pretty happy, but unfortunately, these things are incredibly untidy and messy. And so what that means is after a while, the badgers who are neat freaks kick them out and tell them to, get their own place. On top of that, you can move in with rabbits as well, which is quite a good solution because all you have to do is make the tunnels a little bit bigger, block up all the exits bar one, and then you've got 2 weeks worth of shopping without ever having to leave the house. So they'll go for rabbits. If they need to, they'll go for slugs, snails, worms, and basically anything they can sink their teeth into. Foxes have kind of learned to become opportunistic omnivores. So they don't just eat meat, they'll go after everything. They'll go into your vegetable patch and steal your carrots, go into an orchard and steal your apples, or they'll go into your bins and steal your pizza. The easiest way to get the meal is usually the thing that they're going to do. And where they choose to live affects how long they live for. So captivity, average of 12 years, countryside average of 3, and towns and cities an average of 1.5 years. Now loads of reasons for that massive drop off. Of course, a lot of them are to do with humans, but for starters, when they are in towns and cities, quite a few more foxes in such a small area, diseases pass around quicker, just as with humans really. And then on top of that, when they go through those bins to find food, if it smells like food and tastes like food, a fox often is going to assume that it's found food. Obviously, if that's a pizza box and it's going to smell and taste like pizza, the fox eats it, and that cardboard or plastic is going to make them quite ill, quite sick, and for a young fox especially, that can be fatal too. The biggest threat to our foxes, though, here in Britain are our cars. Unfortunately, included in their death rate every single year, we have 100,000 foxes being hit and killed by cars alone.
Her name comes from the power she has in her feet and the power she has in her talons. So she has the strength and power in her feet and talons to quite easily be able to crush a fox's skull, even a small deer, and even take a lamb as well. But yeah, pretty much anything's on the menu for eagle owls. And again, if Ethel decided to go a bit rogue around the centre, she could pretty much help herself to anything really here at the centre. Yeah, as I mentioned, she's probably the most chilled out owl you could meet. And it said if you were in a room with Ethel or any of the other owls, they would actually in fact be able to hear your eyes blinking and your heart beating. That's how amazing their hearing is. They don't even have to see that prey. They can find, strike at their prey, complete accuracy, get about that animal knowing that there's an owl behind them. Owls can actually have 3 different eye colours. And it is just a rough rule, but the eye colour usually indicates when the owl is most active. So if the Lingfield here with those brown eyes, you'll see we've got barn owl as well. They are always known as your nighttime hunters, or nocturnal hunters. So usually you sleep during the daytime, wake up at night time. You've then got the next eye colour, which is the yellow-eyed owls. So things like snowy owls, spotted owls, little owls that you have here in Britain, they are known as your daytime hunters, or otherwise known as your diurnal hunters. And then finally, we've got those sort of amazing striking orange eyes, found on like long-eared owls, eagle owls here in Britain. They are sort of more your dawn and dusk hunters, otherwise known as very fancy word just for costume. But yeah, they all kind of come out different times of day, giving that sort of owl best chance of finding enough food as well.